everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Turn to the Stars. Today I have a really great guest on the show, and her name is Diann Sespico. Welcome to the show, Diann.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about Nicol's Way, and Diann has some really great information to share with you. And we're going to be talking about her book, Niccol's Way. And this is primarily about autism and Diann's experience with her daughter, Nicole, who has autism. And so, Diann, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Niccol's Way?
Okay, well, I'm a mother first, and a wife, and I have 2 children, and I've been, blessed with a nice career of nursing. I'm a director of nursing, and I've been also, in with autism, and I have my master's in severe special education. And so I've been following the autism pathways. And so with that knowledge, I've been able to, help Nicole and help the autism spectrum in Massachusetts.
So Nicole is how old at this point?
She's 38. She'll be 39 in August of this year.
Wow, wow. And yeah, time goes so fast. It sure does.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicole has autism.
Right.
And so it's been quite a journey for you. When did you discover that she had autism?
Well, it's funny, as a mother, you have that intuition. And with my background, I knew something was wrong with her before she was 1 year old. But the doctors didn't really discover it until after she was 2. And that was with a lot of, my push and my husband's push. And because in 1982, it wasn't really well known, and you can't blame the doctors either, because they only knew what they knew at that time. And we were in Ohio when she was born, and it wasn't as progressive as some other states at that time. And but as other people were diagnosed in the future, and some celebrities were diagnosed, their children, and then it became more known to the public. People were diagnosed earlier and earlier with autism, where it went from, oh gosh, I think it was 10 in every 15,000 to 1 in 50 to 1 in every 75 children.
Wow, wow. And as I was reading your book, Niccol's Way, I was really touched. It is so well written, and you can tell it's so much from your heart as a mother, and that you're telling your story. And we all, I know we all think that our story is sometimes everybody should know it, but we don't. But people don't know it. Mm-hmm. And so I really wanted to support you with this journey. And can you tell us, what is the difference between a child with autism and a child without autism?
Well, there really isn't much difference with the normal developmental stages. Okay, so you have a child that's born and they go through, infancy and toddler age, and then school age, and then preteen, teenage, and adult, and young adult, and whatever. And there's certain characteristics of each developmental stage. And with each developmental stage, the characteristics are the same. They may be a little delayed, and they may show exhibitions of differently. They may exhibit them differently, but they still have the same characteristics. So really, you should treat them almost as a normal child, and be aware that they're going to have those same qualities that the normal child will have.
Yeah, and I know that as an astrologer, about back in 2014, one of my mentors showed us some of the indicators in an astrology chart of autism. And Nicole's are a little bit different because, as we talked about, some of the indicator is of autism is after her birth. And so it's a little different, I think, for each child, and for each child, what those indicators are may be different. And
Right.
so, is the person with autism distant, not touchable, not lovable, as most people think?
Well, it's on each individual child. They're very sensitive, and some people don't like to be touched or hugged, you know, that kind of thing. However, once you get to know them, you develop a relationship with them, they really like that. And some of them do. I'm Italian and my daughter loves to be hugged. They like to be squeezed. And if you know Temple Grandin, she talks about the squeeze machine and how that helped her, that made her feel secure and loved. Well, most of them do like that. It's just that they need to be sensitized to that. My daughter loves that, you know, and so it all depends on the individual. But sometimes they just need to be sensitized. Certain of them don't like certain textures, maybe, or certain textures of food. But as you introduce them and you give them the opportunity to feel different things, they become accustomed to it. So don't give up on that, you know. But they just may be obsessive compulsive in certain areas.
Wow, wow. And what do you think might cause a person with autism to be distant, not touchable, not lovable, as most people think?
Well, maybe because, like I said, they may feel differently, like they're so sensitive that something that is, you know, just a feel like this for us, maybe needles like feeling for them, or the pressure may be too deep for them and maybe feel hurtful to them, you know, or the way you approach them may be, they may be thinking somebody's coming towards them more than a normal person would feel. So, and if they're claustrophobic, which many of them are, that would feel, you know, demonstrative to them also. You know, it could be very frightening to them. So I think your approach to them is, needs to be balanced. You need to really know the individual, and you have to go step by step with them on trying to be, you know, sensitive, and then desensitizing them to things that they're not accustomed to. But to give them every opportunity that you can, have them experience every opportunity. Just because they may not like it, still try to give them the opportunity to experience different things,
Wow.
because it's through repetitive actions that they become accustomed to things.
Right, right. And it sounds like there were a lot of trial errors and trials and try this, try that that you went through. And I know that from reading your book that this has been quite a journey for you and your family.
Right, right. And you just can't give up, because it's not, everything's not right for just one person. You know, everybody's an individual, and some people do better this way, some people do that better way, that way. But there is a consistency that I feel is almost good for all of them, and that is a routine, something scheduled, having them know what's going to happen, predicting what's going to happen next. Not that you can't go out of their routine. By all means, you want to be able to have that adjustment, but maybe 85% of the time, letting them know what's going to be happening next, you know, letting them know the schedule of the day, giving them that security, that what is going to be happening, where they're going, what's going to happen. Practice with them before you're going. For example, if you're going to the dentist, practice with them, you know, brushing your teeth, opening their mouth, going through the motions with them, So when they get there, they have a little bit of insight of what's going on with them when they get there. That's very helpful to them.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from your point of view, what might cause a person with autism to get upset and have some behaviors?
Well, one of them is transitions, going from one place to another, one environment to another, not being told where they're going, just abruptly moving them from one place to another. And if they're involved in an activity that they really, really like, and you know, maybe take that away from there immediately without any explanation, or saying, you know, in 5 minutes or after you're finished with that part of your activity, you know, the next thing we're going to be doing is this, and you don't walk them through it, they may still get a little bit upset, but not as much as if you warned them or you told them what's going to be happening, if you walk them through it. So each transition, you have to let them know what is happening, and that will reduce the amount of unpredictability for them. So, you know, explaining to them or having a chart or a schedule and showing them or telling them what's going to be happening.
Right.
It's very soothing. Or even at the beginning of the day, say, you know, the day is going to be, first we're going to have breakfast, and then after breakfast, our plan is to do this. And then after that, we plan on doing this, and keep reminding them. Or if you're in the car, you're saying, we're on our way to the dentist, and then after the dentist, we're plan on going, you know, for a walk or whatever it is. And when you're planning your day, make sure there's always physical activity and movement. These children, I feel, need physical activity and movement because they have so much pent-up energy that they have to release that. I know many of them, you know, have taken medication, and that's really trial and error. And personally, I feel if they need to be on medication, why not wait till you absolutely need that? You can use physical exercise, but it has to be at least 20 or 30 minutes at a time. You know, walking with them, running with them, or doing a bicycle, something that they can physically do. Not everybody can ride a bicycle. Not everybody, you know, but if they can walk fast or get on roller skates or something that is actually going to make them tired, and do that through that day, that's going to help them the most. That will help them the most to be, you know, calm down naturally rather than using any chemicals for them.
Yeah, that sounds
That
like,
has to be part of their daily schedule.
right, right. So it sounds like repetition is really important.
Yes, it is. It's very important for them. A repetition schedule, you know, and it doesn't matter if it's if they repeat it over and over again, because that's how they're going to learn.
Right, right.
That is how it's going to be internalized.
Okay.
You know, they sometimes will not be able to do something, but if you continue to do it over and over and over again, it will become internalized for them.
So what are some of the noted behaviors a person with autism will exhibit?
In the beginning, you may see your child where they don't attend to you, okay? Or like, you know, when a child sort of gives back to you, if you give them a toy and they give it back, or they play peekaboo with you and they don't reciprocate.
Yeah.
They may not have eye contact with you. They don't do that. They may not look you in the eye. They may look over to the side. Those are the kind of things. They may not have speech right away. They may not walk where your other children or other people walk at a certain age. Those are some of the things. They may not play with another person. They may play outside of the people's play. You know, it's called more parallel play rather than playing with the people. They're more maybe a loner, you know, or they may not play with a toy appropriately. They may just, hold the toy and just go back and forth with it. And some children, may hit themselves repetitively. That's another sign. Or they may shake their hands or something, or just stare out a window and just look and see what's going on outside, and just they look through you rather than at you.
Yeah.
Those are those signs like that.
Wow. Wow. So what are some of the interventions that you've discovered that help the individual with autism to prevent behaviors?
One of the things is that if they're doing something with their hands or something, try to get them something to hold in their hands if you can. The other thing is to when you're talking with them, try to talk directly to them so that they're looking at you and they're attending to you. Don't try to talk to them across the room.
Right.
Try to be real close to them. So that they are attending to you. Okay. The other thing is a schedule, like I said, having a schedule, doing a lot of physical activity where you're really making them tired through the day, so they're going to have a good night's sleep.
Right.
Having many of them want to eat. Some don't want to eat. Some only want to eat certain types of food. But try to stick to 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. Don't let them eat randomly. Try to get into a routine, because that will help you. If you can get them to listen to you and eat, the 3 meals, then they're going to listen to you with other things. And you want them to know that you are in charge. Okay. You don't want them to control you. So you want them to know that you are in charge, and that we're going to sit down and eat now. And you want them to, have the opportunity to try different foods. Many of them won't. It's very difficult. So you want to try to just put just little things on a spoon and just have them taste it, or just put it on their lips.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I know you and I talked about is that a person with autism may become obsessed with an activity and may not want to transition. Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. They may be involved in like an art project, because many of them have, a lot of artistic ability, and they don't want to leave that until they're completely finished. They don't want to have anything unfinished. Some of them who are very obsessed. So that is a good quality, but it also can be an obsession that they're not going to move until everything's finished. And you can't have that in their life, because they can't finish everything before you go on to the next thing. So you want them to learn that you may have to leave it. So you want to give them a time period. You can use a timer and show them that when that timer's up, you're going to leave it. You're going to put it in a box. It's going to be there. You can go back there. We'll go back there later, and let them know when they're going to go back. And you have to show them that you're going to go back to that. They can go back to that after the next activity or whatever you're doing. And it's going to be there. It's going to be safe. They can go back there. But you have to sometimes interrupt what they're doing to go to the next step, and they need to learn that when they go to school or wherever they're going to be. But sometimes they'll have a very difficult time if you interrupt anything like that for them.
So they might maybe throw a little bit of a fit, a tantrum.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I remember studying with one of my mentors, and when we were studying about the indicators in gestation of autism, and often there's these indicators of an early development right after conception, restriction of some type, and that's one of the indicators of autism. And there were some famous musicians that my mentor Chad Mann brought up, and so there are a lot of noted, very creative people with minor, that are artists, artistic, and some are very musically inclined.
Yes.
And yet there's a broad spectrum of autism. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, there is a broad spectrum of autism. There, as you know, there's people on the spectrum who are very low functioning, but just because they're low functioning doesn't mean that they don't understand or don't comprehend. They may be physically not able to do certain things, but they could understand. So you can never underestimate them. And then there's people who are very high functioning, who can even live by themselves. They can drive. Some of them can marry. And there's all different diagnosis along the spectrum. Some people call them pervasive developmental disabled, and then all the way up to people who are now they call Asperger's, who are many of them are engineers. They have a degree, and they have their master's or their doctorate, and they have a lot of different abilities, but they have problems with socialization. And so they have to learn how to socialize with people. They're loners, they like to work on their own, and they have difficulty. And they have to learn how to work with others or work in a group. And it's hard to learn people's social skills.
Right.
And, so that is one of their problems, they have difficulty with. And so it's very interesting, the different levels on the spectrum.
Yeah, and this is something we discussed prior to the show, that some of the famous people with autism, which I was really surprised to know: Elon Musk, Autistic, Dan Aykroyd, Susan Boyle, Anthony Hopkins. These are all famous people with autism, and I wasn't aware of that. And so it leads me to the question: how can autistic people help each other?
Well, I always look at in a classroom, you can mix people together, and the people that are maybe a little higher functioning or better in certain skills can help the people that have lower skills, and they're really helping themselves by helping the other people. Okay, they're helping themselves with socialization by helping the other people. So they really are interdependent on each other, to help. And so I think that's a real positive thing. We talk, about integrating, students, normal students, the normal student that you call, and then the person that has a challenge. There's pros and cons to that. But Dr. Kitahara from Japan, who is the educator that I followed with Nicole, she had a private school for normal students, and she ended up taking a young child of 4 or 5 years old that the mother couldn't handle, who happened to have autism, the child, and she put her with the normal children, and she started acting more and more like the normal child. And she was able to develop more skills, able to ride the bus, to school like the other ones, the subway in Japan. And she was able to function fairly normally, in her high school years. And then because of that opportunity, over the years, she had 550 students with autism come to her normal school of 2,300 students,
Wow.
And then her school just grew and grew and grew, and that was her philosophy, bringing them to the normal private school.
Did you find that was significant for Nicole?
That it really, well, it was very helpful when Nicole went to Japan because the normal kids helped with the students. Yes. Now here, the integration isn't like that. You know what I mean? It isn't. We try very hard to have it like that, but it
Right.
isn't like that yet. We strive for that. We do strive for that. But they're still sort of separated, I think. You know, I think they're separated. There are some times where I think it does happen, where that does happen. But I found that in Nicole's school, where she was here, there was all students with autism. And the higher functioning students did help the lower functioning, and it did help. In her group home, she has higher functioning with her, and they definitely are very helpful to her. They help her in and out of the van, but she also helps them with her compassion and her smile, and, you know, being with them when they're agitated. She's sort of a calming person to them. So it is nice to see that, but they can help each other that way.
You know, the question that keeps coming into my mind is a very positive environment, structured positive environment is really important.
Oh yeah, oh definitely.
Yeah.
You have to see, it's like with anything, it's even, you know, with our work, if you're working in a positive environment, you're going to see positive seeks positive, you know, and you're going to see better results.
Right, right. And how does music, because you mentioned music in your book, how does that help?
Well, I'll tell you, music helps everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. There's something about music, I think, and there's been a lot of articles lately, how it affects the brain. And it really does change the brain. I mean, you could see, even in my daughter, she'll be just staring out in space, and you put her music on and she's a completely different person. She starts humming, she smiles, she understands every word. If a word is off, she knows it. She relates to her father with music. You know, it's really great. It's touching, really. And I also work with the elderly, and when we put music on, they may not talk, they may have Alzheimer's, they may be confused, but when you put that music on, they dance, they remember every word. It's touching. And music is just something, it just brings back a lot of good memories. It brings a positive attitude. I think it's very healing to people.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. That's probably one of the biggest recommendations you could make to a young parent that has an autistic child, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is one parent I read about that he couldn't relate to his child. His child was high functioning, but he couldn't talk to him. But the only way he could relate to him, and he was very brilliant, is by he had to talk and sing to him when he was talking to him. And that's the only way that he would respond. So he just sang to him and talked, and that he would relate to him.
It sounds like it brings them back to be present.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like to me. I know it does that for me.
Yeah.
So
talking about being present, you know, it's funny. I was reading a book. My mother went to high school with Sister Angelica. She was the sister that was always on the TV programs that said the rosary, or, you know, but she was quite funny. And when my mother died, I was at Target, and this book hit me on the head. It was weird. It was right after my mom was buried, and it was her book. And I went, oh my God. So I read her book, and this was 40 years ago. And she said, you know what, you know, when she was talking about this, and she said that you have to be present. That is the main thing, is that you have to be present. She says you can't think of the past, and if you think about the future too much, it just paralyzes you. Well, that's what everybody's talking about in the last 10 years, be present, be present, be present. But I'll tell you, when you're working with children with autism, they make you be present.
Yeah.
Like when my daughter's home, I don't do anything. I have to be with her. I am present with her, and I don't think of work when I'm with her. I don't think of what I'm doing tomorrow with her. I'm thinking of just what I'm doing that day with her, and on and on. So, I mean, you have to be present. So
Right.
there is a gift there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I had to laugh when you mentioned the word present, because everybody's talking about be in the present, but sometimes you're forced to be in the present, and you know what it means.
Yeah, and a lot of times I know in relating to other people, and it sounds like especially autistic, it's required, because that's what's right there at present. And you hear a lot about mindfulness and meditations for mindfulness, especially for people who are ADHD, and so it is a very powerful thing to be present. Very, very powerful. And what's a good activity that will help an autistic person before they sleep or to calm them down?
Well, when you talk about meditation, they maybe not get the concept of meditation, but I think one of the things that you could really do is go over the day. Yeah, I do that sometimes myself. I go, what happened today, and what can I have done better? Or, and how did I handle that? And what would I do differently or whatever? But with Nicole, what I do is, we always say, let's pray for this person and that person and whatever. And it's sort of like a rhythmic type thing. But also I go over the day, we started the day, you came home and we made, this, and we ate this, and we played with the dog, and then we went out for a ride, and then we went to the beach, and wasn't it fun watching all the kids in the water and blah, 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 blah. And then we went to Target or whatever, where we did, and then we had lunch, and what we ate for lunch, what did you like best? And then we went out for a walk, and all the things, and then we talked about this, and then we watched Little Mermaid or wherever it was, and then you listened to your music. Then we had dinner, and then we went for another walk, and then we watched another movie or whatever it was, and then we're laying here in bed, and what are we going to do tomorrow? Well, if it's a nice day, we're going to do this, and then just go through all that, and it sort of makes them think schedule wise, and as you're talking, it's very soothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like some advice that you've learned through trial and error again. So there was a quote in your book, Diann, that I read. It was on page 24, and you said, I was brought up with the doctrine, don't question, even when I went to nursing school, the doctors knew best. I listened, but eventually began to trust myself. I began going over everything I observed. I knew Nicole paid attention more when on a one-to-one basis and around small group situations, larger groups, there were distractions. And those are signs of autism, that's what I took from that. And so that just really jumped out at me, that quote. And because we're taught, and I was having this conversation today earlier with my boyfriend of, years ago, we didn't know what these things were, so there would be labels. And so thank God we know. so much
Mhm.
more about it. And
Mhm.
is there any type of chemical test or examination that can identify autism?
Well, I think, there probably have been, I know there've been studies. I know Dr. Jerome Kagan, he just passed away recently, but he was from Harvard, and he did a lot of studies on infants, who were shy or who were positioned a certain way, and he thought those might have been some characteristics of, autism, I believe. But I don't know if there isn't any blood tests to this day. They really don't have anything concrete, but there are some characteristics like they're finding more, like I mentioned before, and they're looking for those characteristics far before 2 years old. But people don't like to diagnose these too early because I even have a young man that had done some handiwork here one time at our house, and he was very upset because he thinks his son has autism, and the doctors don't want to label that anymore. He's like a year and a half, and he was telling me some of the things he's doing, and his doctors just don't want to say anything yet, but from everything that he reads, and but they just fear that, they want to wait, and make sure. But there's things you can do, there's things that you can do, they have early intervention now, much earlier, when the children's are, few months old, where they can do physical therapy, occupational therapy for eye-hand coordination, and all that for strengthening, the muscles and all that, which was very helpful, for the brain and the coordination of the person. So of the infant. So they are working on that, I think, more. But if there's exact testing right now, they don't have anything like that, I don't believe.
Wow.
They have a lot of observations, and it's more, out there now. But as far as a specific blood test or anything, I don't think they do have. There is one genetic that is called Fragile X, and Fragile X has been there. That's a lot of times, I think it's in the Jewish population, and they have there's that, and then there's Rets that used to be part of, categorized as some form of autism, and that is with mainly with females, I believe.
Okay.
That is more detectable.
More okay, in females.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noted in reading your book is that when Nicole was small, when she would eat certain foods, she would cross her eyes. So there were certain foods that were not good that would make it worse, or?
Well, we didn't really know. She, when she would eat certain, like tomato sauce or acidic things, we thought maybe that made her more agitated. But we really weren't sure. But we went through the allergy route. We went through all that. We just try to observe everything, because some of the people have high allergies, but she doesn't exhibit that anymore, whether she grew out of it or not. But they didn't know if she was, allergic. We had all the tests done.
Right.
But, I think when she started doing more physical activity and, walking and all that, her system became better, and she didn't have those problems that much. Sometimes she still will cross her eyes if she's, tired, or, if she's having maybe pain or something like that.
Right, right. I remember years ago, I think it was back in the 80s, there was an actress who had an autistic child that found relief in changing the child's diet. I think it was Jenny McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
She's a president of Generation Rescue, a nonprofit organization that provides grants to help families struggling with autism. And I think it was her, but there was another actress also that had an autistic child. And I can't remember her name at this point, but she changed the diet completely. And she swore that made a huge difference in the child. And so I guess every child is different too.
Right, right. Every child's different, so you just don't know. There are a lot of even so-called normal babies that have, problems with different formulas and stuff like that. So and I've seen some of the children that I worked with that had autism. They, had G tubes because they couldn't tolerate some foods or formulas, and they outgrew it, but initially they had problems.
Yeah. Well, there's some of the things that I'm thinking about here. What's the best advice that you could give to a parent or to families with autism?
Well, number one, you have to trust your gut, and you have to, believe in them. You have to believe in your child, and you have to show them that you believe in them, and just be patient as much as you can. It is, there's times that you're going to get very impatient, but just do your very best. Don't be afraid to ask for help or to get help. Sometimes you think as a parent, oh, you can do all this yourself, but sometimes you really do need to get help because it's hard.
You need support.
Yeah, you need the support, and try to get the help that you need. Just look for what is best for your child, in the school system, outside the school system, whatever you do need, and ask for the help that you do need to get the best resources as early as possible that you can for them. I think that's important. And, one thing we did with my son, he was older, they're 4 years apart. We always had one day that I went out with him. I think it was like on Thursday nights. And I always made one night wherever he wanted to do something, I went, with him and made sure that we did that because he was so good with her. And I always wanted to make sure I did that for him, and I always did that because he was always good with that. And then later on, he was very good with some of the siblings of the other children with autism that were younger. He tried to talk with them sometimes if they needed help. So it was nice, that he got that experience.
Yeah, definitely. And what are some of the gifts that Nicole has that you would say that make her stand out, or, the talents that you see in her that, and we all have areas that are challenging. We all have areas that we're, talented in, hopefully. But it is notable with autistic children and children with Asperger's that they have special gifts that are other, that are not in the normal person. And who's to say normal, but what are some of the gifts that Nicole has?
Well, it's funny because when she transitioned from the under 22 program, which is the educational system, to the adult system, I asked her, her friends and her teachers, I asked them that question when I was doing her profile for her over 22. And I said, what are her strengths and what are her gifts, that I should tell the people that are going to be with her over 22. And they said, one thing about Nicole, has a beautiful smile and she's nice to her friends, in her own way, and they said that is something that is good. And she teaches all the new teachers and the new people that don't know much about how to deal with a person with autism. She teaches them.
Wow.
And, because she tests them. but she said that her smile and the way she comes across, and she's lovable in her expressions. She said that that's what, you know, she gives to other people, and also other adults. Like even my friends will say, I've learned so much from her, you know, and how she relates. And so she's touched a lot of people, I think, you know, and maybe that's what her job is. I don't know.
Well, it's so interesting because doing the work that I do, and I hope you don't mind, I'm going to share a little tidbit here, is that she has the sun in Leo and trine to Neptune, and Neptune is in the third house of the mind. Neptune is illusion, it's dreams, it's visions, and a trine is to the sun means compassion, empathy. She has a beautiful spirit. And she just shines when she's, you know, in a group of peers. And so what you just described is in her chart, and it's beautiful. Yeah. Some of the indicators that we look at in astrology is, you know, Saturn right after the birth spot, or Saturn right after the conception point, but Neptune also in the third house, which is the mind, the thinking, the ability to communicate. So she probably communicates a lot through her compassion and her big heart.
Yeah, she does. She's cute that way.
Yeah. And an adult with autism, can they live on their own?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them have apartments that they share. Some just have to be, you know, overall supervised. But I know some that have apartments on their own. I have a couple that I know that are driving. I know a couple that are married and they're doing real well. You know, it just depends on on that spectrum again, you know. Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, talking about this, and one thing, I wanted to write the book only because I wanted to have other people know that there are things that you can do. And I wanted also for there were so many times that policemen, firemen, people in the community that service people, and nurses and doctors and dentists, they don't really get training, or they might now start. I know some of the interns are starting to get some training, but they don't know much about autism and how to take care of a person with a disability like this. I know I taught some of the people on how to go to the dentist with the person with autism, you know, how to go to the doctor, how to do the blood work, that kind of thing. And it's the different approaches that can be used. I hate to have to see, you know, a person have to go and be under anesthesia to have their teeth cleaned if possible. But that has to be done on many people. Yeah. Because it's hard to have them go to the dentist. But I just wanted to make sure that they understand the approach that you can use, some of the techniques that you can use, you know, trying to, if a person is, you know, having some agitation or is fearful, some of the methods that you can use, some of the interventions that you can use to calm them down. Because, you know, many times, you know, I remember one time when my husband and I took my daughter, we didn't know what was wrong with her. She was crying. We took her to the doctor, and I didn't know if she had an ear infection, what was going on with her, if she was constipated. I didn't know, you know, I mean, sometimes you just can't figure it out. And she was crying and everything. And the doctor said, I think maybe she might have an ear infection. So she was crying in the office. So Frank said, well, I'll take her to the car and you can get all the information and the prescription and all that, and then we'll meet you in the car. And so Frank took her to the car and she was still crying, and he was trying to put the music on and everything. And a policeman was out there, and he, was, telling my husband, "What are you doing to her?" And I mean, my husband felt awful. I mean, it was a horrible experience for him. But I mean, I could understand, because the police thought maybe she was being abused, whatever,
Right.
And he explained that he just got, out of the doctor's office, and he said, well, let's go to the doctor's office. And he went up with them, and then the doctor explained, what was going on, because, so that's what happened. But, if you don't know, and I thank the policeman, because, he was doing his job. But if you don't know about autism or what they do or whatever. So that was one instance. And then one time we were in this store, and she'll be okay for maybe, 20 minutes or a half hour. And then all of a sudden she'll get like claustrophobic if there's too big of a crowd. It's overstimulating to them. Just something may trigger.
Right.
She started like screaming, going to the ground, that kind of stuff. We're trying to pick her up. And some little kid thought she was bleeding and went to the police and said, "There's a girl bleeding. There's a girl bleeding." So he came to us, and I tried to tell him, I said, "She's just got overwhelmed, fearful." I said to the police, just walk with us till I get her outside.
Right.
So he did, but he followed me. And once she got outside, she was fine. She started laughing. She was fine. She was just having a claustrophobic, she felt it closed. But he listened, and then I talked to him, and I told him a little bit about autism, and he listened. But they don't know, you know what I mean?
It sounds to me like autistic people have extrasensory, they're extra sensitive in different ways, and to their environment, and that there can be triggers that you don't know what they are, but you discover them, as you go through life.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, I just want to show Diann, I wanted to show your book, because
Okay.
she has it behind her, but I just wanted to show everybody. Where can people get your book?
Well, they could call me. I can give you my number, and I can send it out to you. It's my number is 781-789-3955. You can text me. That's my cell number. Or I think Amazon has it also. It's called Nicole's Way. And but I'll be glad to send you one out if you want to call me, 781-789-3955.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate, I'm so glad that we had this opportunity to share this with other people. I know so many times we think that we're the only one having this experience, when in fact, there's so many people that your story, Nicole's story, would benefit. And so I hope this reaches many people, and people that have autistic or autism in the family, because I think you had a lot of really great recommendations. And so I want to say thank you for coming on Turn to the Stars. And everyone, thank you for joining us to listen to Diann today, and to hear about her story with her daughter, Nicole, with autism and her family. And again, if you're looking for Diann's book, it's available on Amazon, or you can call Diann at 781-789-3955. Thank you, Diann, for being a guest.
And thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And everyone, thank you for tuning in to Turn to the Stars. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Take good care.
Okay. Take care.